that. That would be good for immature Christians, but you're not immature Christians. You are the ones that God is working with. And you just need to mature it. When somebody says, grow up, grow up, grow up. Greatness is waiting on you. Grow up, grow up, grow up.
Yeah. We are the epitome of Black female love.
It's easy for us as Black women to hold up the banner and the calls for everyone else. But again, who holds up the banner and the calls for
that we as a Black church are perpetuating the same behavior as a patriarchal evangelicals have been doing.
right. Hey, my sisters. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, so good to see you all again. Our viewing audience, please let us know that you are here. Tell us, put in there what city or state that you are watching us with on today. And do this wonderful thing for us, like, tag, and share, because you do not want to miss this discussion that we have on today. You do not want to miss this discussion. All right, so we just lost Dr. Wallace for a moment. Dr. Wright, it was so good to see you this week in the ATL. Dr. Wallace, it was great to see you as well. So how y'all been since I last seen you?
Wonderful. Wonderful. I think while I was in the ATL, the pollen was beating me up, and I learned something while I was there. The people in Atlanta have to power wash their houses to get the pollen off. I had no idea that was ever done, but it sure beat me up. But I'm so grateful to be back in fresh air, Midwest, Kansas City.
Wow, a lot of things I perhaps have associated Kansas City with fresh air is not one of them. All right.
I think you all are just waiting because Taylor Swift was here with us also this weekend and last weekend, and Queen Bee will be here with us this weekend.
Okay, I know Queen Bee is, but Taylor Swift, she is. Oh, the little clear girl.
Okay, bright red lip, her. Okay. That one right there.
Okay, and she means what to your pocket? How does she's blessed your life in what way? I'm just trying to figure this out.
I've never seen her in concert. I just happen to like Travis myself.
That's right, Natalie Davis. Taylor, who?
Don't do it, Nat.
Well, as you, we saw you in Atlanta, but you in the mid something too, aren't you? Midwest?
Yeah, girl, I'm in Oklahoma City, and she talking about ain't no pollen. This stuff, this windstorm and craziness here in Oklahoma City ain't no joke.
You're ways from me.
Woo! It ain't no joke. It ain't no joke.
Love it.
Okay. Well, I have not been in front of a TV, and so I have absolutely no idea what has been going on in this last week of the world. So, Dr. Wright, what's been going on?
Well, it is my understanding that the judge has ruled that 45 is definitely going to be held and charged with defrauding the people and usurious business practices as far as building his business, and it's on and popping. So now I'm going to get some popcorn and sit back and wait and see how they're going to handle it.
Wow.
More stuff. My.
Absolutely. We hear this stuff, but it's these people do this stuff, live this way. And, I don't want to say the little people, but kind of the little people are steady saying, when is this man going to be held accountable?
Yeah. I mean, if he were Black, he would be under the jail.
That right there.
I mean, when they brought the first charge, not 91 charges, but the first charge, and this man's still walking around. I don't understand. Yeah, I do. I understand. He white. He's a white man in America. That's the only reason.
It's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
It's ridiculous. I mean, we say justice, but if you really look at the system, there's just us, and then there's justice.
Yep.
I don't know why y'all keep thinking that these laws in this country have been built to benefit persons of color. That's why I can't understand how you educated women keep saying and thinking this. Hey, help this sister understand.
But Jesse did say keep hope alive.
That, I think, plus the hope is that we will eventually have some semblance of justice. You know, after Obama, I was just really elated. Everything went downhill after his 8 years. You talking about having somebody else in office can run again. I wish Obama could run again.
No, I wish Michelle would run.
Well, I guess, you know, for me, and I know that we're about to introduce our guest and bring our guest up. I remember just kind of scrolling through Facebook. When was it? Maybe yesterday, while I was coming up the highway, and apparently someone has made a comment. Was it Abyssinia Baptist in New York? That's pulpit is open, and I think I know it was a male. I don't know if he's a preacher or not, kind of made a comment of saying, you know, if they don't want you, they just don't want you. You know, stop going into places and spaces where you know that you aren't wanted. And this is to talking about women not being applicants for the pulpit at this particular church. But I think I guess it's like this is that, you know, why I understand on one end of, you know, that if it is cause of lack, keeping food off your table, money out of your pocket. I understand this thing, but why is it that we, whether we be people of color, whether it be gender related, help me understand why do we continue to try to insist on being in spaces that do not want us instead of taking our power together and creating spaces so where we know that we can be healthy and whole?
But that's because you are a visionary, Dr. Burns. You are a visionary for KFM. You're a visionary for Timely Wisdom. You have created spaces and you know how to do that. Many of our women don't have the expertise that you bring to the table. But I would invite them, all of the women that are on this call, if you don't know how to do something, text, tag, and send a note to Dr. Venice Burns. You know how to get it done.
She got you a job.
Hey, she know how to get it done. She know how to get it done, and I am so glad she my friend.
Wait a minute. Yeah, I just feel like I got side. I just feel like I got side don't beat up. All right, let's introduce our guest.
All right, it is none other than the infamous Dr. Lisa McLaurin, Alan McLaurin, and she is the worship leader of Womanist theology. And she just got back from Paris, and she spent almost a semester, I want to think, it might have been longer than that, in Paris, and conducted worship workshops all across the country. And she's a former worship professor at the ITC. Now she's at Memphis Methodist Theological in Ohio. I think I got that right. But she got a position, doing well. She still got wings because she's flying back and forth from Ohio to Atlanta. But we're so glad to have you, and so glad that you could be with us to talk about Paris.
Hey, everybody. Oh my gosh, it's so good to see you guys.
How are you, dear?
I
Hey.
am doing great. I am doing well. Dr. Brenda, Dr. Sarita, Dr. Benice. Hey. Yeah, it's been a whirlwind 8 months, I tell you. I had the privilege and the pleasure to serve as the interim choral director, scholar in residence at the American Church in Paris for 6 months, where I helped plan worship. I directed the choir and had several concerts with the choir. I had one with a young lady who is a beautiful vocalist who's based in the Atlanta area, Ronnie Cherie Jackson. We did a concert on Holy Monday of Psalms, spirituals, and gospels. And we, for the first time ever, I think, performed, the choir did Robert Ray's Gospel Mass for Good Friday. So yeah, I did a class on Womanist theology, Bible study, 4-week Bible study class while I was there. So it was an amazing experience. It was.
So how did you have time to write a new book?
Huh?
How did you have time to write a new book?
Well, first of all, a lot of the book was already written when I went to Paris.
Okay.
I think I finished up maybe around April.
Okay.
I think I finished up around April, and the book, I think it just came out today. In the next couple of days, you should be able to. It's on the publisher site, Cascade Books, which is an imprint of Whippenstock. So you can go to whippenstock.com and then scroll down to Cascade Books and or look at new releases. It's under new releases.
And the title?
The One Word Worship Model, a new paradigm for planning church worship, a new paradigm for church worship planning.
Okay. A new paradigm for church worship planning.
Yeah.
Type that in so people can go and order the book and bless our sister who has been with us more than one time.
Yeah. I always enjoy my time in Timely Wisdom. It's so good.
Right. All right. We love having you as well. Tell us, what was it that you loved the most about being in Paris?
Being in a different culture. I loved having enough time, because a lot of times when we visit places, we're going for vacation, so we might spend a week, maybe 2 weeks, 3 if we're lucky, and so we spend a lot of time sightseeing, seeing the kind of touristy places, which I did some of that. I'm not really a tourist kind of person, but what I loved was immersing myself in the culture and cultures, because it's a multicultural country of Paris, going into the different neighborhoods and enjoying the different types of foods and the different ways of being across arrondissement, if you will. Which are districts. Arrondissement is French for district. But I also, you're going to think this is interesting, weird, maybe even weird, but I enjoyed seeing the protests. Because where the church is located, it's located in the 7th arrondissement, which is really one of the big tourist areas. That's where the Eiffel Tower is. The church was, literally the Eiffel Tower was in the church's right, not backyard, but on the side. I could literally just walk right down to it. And then the Louvre was not far, and several different places. were right there. The hospital that Napoleon built. So yeah, and so the street that the church is on, which is Quai d'Orsay, was right along the Seine River. Ooh. And so most of the protests, when they would come through the 7th, they would come right down in front of the church, down that street. And so I never saw, like, people would call me and they say, are you all right? We're seeing all of these, they're burning, cars, and they're tossing, bombs into buildings and stuff. And I was like, no, that's not happening on my end. It's probably, on further down, because there was also a very heavy gendarme presence, police presence in our in our district, because of the tourists, because it was a tourist, and also where the government was kind of centrally located. They kept many of the streets blocked off when there were protests. So, but one day I remember the farmers, I guess, union or workers, they had their protests. And of course, most of the protests was about the rise in the retirement age from 62 to 64. Right. And they brought about 500 to 1,000 tractors rolled down that street all day.
Wow.
I mean, huge tractors. Like, the tires were literally as tall as I am.
Wow.
And they were sitting up on them, and just all day long, just a parade of tractors, which of course, kept the traffic bottled up. Mm-hmm. But it was very interesting. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed actually immersing myself in another language. I wasn't fluent in French. I knew enough to kind of get by. And then most of the places I went, they spoke enough English, to get by with me, to help me let them know what it was I was trying to find. But just enjoying being in the culture. Paris, they have horrible traffic. I mean, their traffic is worse than Atlanta.
Shut up.
I never thought I'd say that about anywhere, but Parisian traffic is horrendous. I'd never drive a car over there.
Oh, Jesus.
Is that the president of France calling? Is he mad because I'm talking about his traffic? But it is also a walking city. Many people walk, from their apartment to wherever they work and wherever they shop or what have you. And just being able to walk down the street and go into the patisseries, the bakeries, and into the shops, and it was wonderful. It really was. It was wonderful.
You didn't have to mention French bakeries. Oh my God, of course.
Listen, I'm telling you, God, that is not hype. There are literally bakeries and cafes on every corner in Paris.
By like Black church.
Absolutely.
So what did you find to be, or what would be the biggest? What do you think would be the biggest learning curve for African American women, especially in Paris?
I'd say finding a community, because there were not a lot of African Americans there that I saw. There's a huge African contingency, because the church even has a huge African population across nations. But there are not a lot of African Americans. And so if I had to live there, that would be one of the drawbacks. There weren't a lot of African Americans there, and certainly not a lot of African American women. I mean, I saw, a few that might have been visiting, and maybe, a few that maybe have lived there. But I mean, when I say few and far between, I mean few and far between.
Wow.
So Dr. McLaurin, you say that you saw the women there, or the large African presence. Were they welcoming, or
Very, absolutely, very welcoming. Now I didn't really go up to anybody on the street, but like the people in the church, they were absolutely very hospitable, very welcoming, and in fact, invited me into their homes for meals. Very welcoming at the church. If there's anything we can do, if there's anywhere we can show you where to go, that kind of thing. Yeah, just very sweet.
Wow. Did you see any Black Madonnas while you were in Paris?
No, I did not. But then I did not get to the Louvre. I did get to the Musée d'Orsay, which is another well-known museum, which is down the street from the church. And to me, I'd rather go there than the Louvre, because the Louvre is so very crowded. And child, when I found out, because I had every intention of going to the Louvre to see the Mona Lisa. That's what everybody says. You got to go to the Louvre to see the Mona Lisa. But when I found out the Mona Lisa was only this big, the portrait is only like this big, and half the time you can't even see it because it's 30 million people crowding around it. I said, oh no, I won't ever stand in those lines just to see that. I'll just see it on the on the computer. That's good enough. Because the Musée d'Orsay, when I went, they had a Monet exhibition, they had a Van Gogh exhibition, they had a Degas exhibition of the sculptures, the ballerina sculptures. So it was, to me, that was much more worth my time. It was phenomenal. I mean, and that was another thing that was just so surreal to me, to see these portraits in person that I had seen in books all my life and on TV shows and on movies, to see them in person. That was just, to see Van Gogh's sunflowers and Monet's water lilies in person was just amazing. It was just amazing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That sounds like you had more than a good time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And the architecture, all of the buildings are just, they're designed to, well, many of them are old, but many of them are still designed to have that, 17th, 18th century kind of stone look. But many of the buildings are very old. I mean, 1,000 years old, and that was interesting too, to see architecture that was still standing and being used, not just the ruins of it, but it still a functional building.
Wow.
That's 500 years old, 900 years old. Yeah, it was amazing.
Wow. Well, what did you like? What did you like?
I didn't like the traffic, because every time I went somewhere, in an Uber, I was like this. And I tell you what I really did not like was, and this is, people say first world problems, or, you can tell your privilege is showing. Yeah, this is going to really show you my privilege is showing. The selection of items in the grocery stores are nothing like America.
Wow.
They, you go and look for, let's just say, brands of spaghetti sauce, or brands of green beans, or brands of, what can I say, even toilet paper.
Wow.
Whereas in our store, you might have, 8 different kinds of mayonnaise, brands of mayonnaise, or 10 different kinds of toilet paper. Honey, you might have 2. And like they didn't have coffee creamer at all.
So you drink it
at all. You put milk in it. They don't that you don't get creamer over there. Now they have a Costco in Paris, one Costco, and it's way out in the countryside, where you can get creamer, or you can order it.
Okay,
but you can't get it in the store.
Oh wow!
And no flavored creamer at all. So like your hazelnut. Yeah, I mean I know that sounds so frivolous, but if you're a coffee drinker and you like flavored cream, you won't get it over there.
Yeah, French vanilla. You gonna have to make your own. Bring your own.
Make your own, honey. Yeah. But now one thing I did appreciate about their food and the food in the stores, very little of their food has any preservatives. You know how American food, you can buy a loaf of bread and keep it 2 weeks. You can't do that over there. You gotta eat that bread up within like 4 days.
Wow.
Yeah. 5 days. Their meat, it can't just sit in the refrigerator. After 3 days, it's gonna spoil.
I know when we were traveling and we went to Africa, it was the same thing, and the milk wasn't even refrigerated. It was put on a shelf. And so when I asked a friend of ours who's a food scientist, I said, how did they manage to keep that milk on the shelf? And he said, oh, doctor, he said, you Americans overprocess everything. Everybody wants their piece of the pie, and that's what shoots your prices up.
Yep, that's right. That's right. And our food is so overprocessed. It's so over, that's why so many of us stay sick, because the food, even if it's good food, when I say good food, it's FDA approved, it's USDA approved, it's so overprocessed. It's not fresh. Like bananas over there, even if you bought the banana in the store and it wasn't ripe, in 3 days, that banana is gonna go bad.
Wow.
Because it's organic. Yeah. So, but I did appreciate it very much.
Well, tell me what are some of the differences. Were there differences in womanist theology from an American perspective, African American female perspective, and the French women that may call themselves womanist theologians? Did you find any differences there?
Well, I'm not familiar with any French womanist theologians. And actually at the church, now I don't know whether this, would have been the same at any other church there, but many of them had not heard of womanist theology. It was a totally new concept for them. When I taught the class, many of them had not heard. Now, I had a couple of students who, had been seminarians and had heard of it, because they were seminarians. But most of the members, they had never heard of womanist theology. It was totally new to them.
Wow. So you got to bring something original.
Yep. And it was, that was one of the blessings of the trip, of my time over there. I was able to bring many new perspectives in worship, in music. Many of them had. Now, one thing they love in France, they love gospel music. They love gospel music. There are several very well-known gospel groups over there. But I don't know that they have it a lot in their churches, because you don't have a lot of gospel, people who are playing gospel that are working in churches. many of the churches are, of course, they're Catholic or they're Episcopalian. They're Eurocentric churches because it's a European country.
So what did you find that you like? What did you find that was the reason for liking gospel music? Was it just because it was a different sound? Was it because
they love the sound? They love I think the rhythmic syncopation, because also French is a country that loves jazz. France is a country that loves jazz, and you remember that many of our jazz musicians, and many of our poets and artists went to France, went to Paris. Because of the utter racism and violence that was going on here, they found a home in Paris where their art was very much welcomed and applauded, because they see the beauty of it, and they hear those African influences. They hear the beauty of the uniqueness, the distinctiveness of the music, of the art. It's unique. It's very indigenous. It's very authentic. And so they have an appreciation for that. And then they love the harmonies of gospel music. They love the extemporaneous nature of leading the soloist leading the songs. And so and then they love the spirit of it too. They love that unbridled kind of free spirit of gospel. It's not staid. It's not so stoic and structured.
Okay. I guess part of my question with that is that I understand gospel music outside of being the good news that we're singing, but much of it is also liberating in its singing. And so you shared that womanist theology was essentially unheard of. And so I guess I'm just trying to figure out that, okay, that we know that there's one aspect of what is liberating, empowering theology is brand new, not they're not familiar with, but yet on the other spectrum, you say that, that they have an affinity toward gospel music. So I'm trying to figure out what is causing this kind of synthesis there. What's causing, them to appreciate this music when they really don't seem to have an understanding of some of the basic theology of Black persons or persons of color.
All I can say is they appreciate the authenticity of it. That it touches the soul, and stirs the emotions in ways that much of the music, of Bach, Beethoven, Brahms, it's just a different way. I mean, because Bach, Beethoven, and Brahms can stir the soul, but this is just a different feeling.
Yeah. Is the universal language. And it's interesting because you can bring people all different colors, all different backgrounds. And like Michael Jackson's We Are the World, when they brought all those groups together and the music started, everybody, you didn't have to say, y'all sway this way and y'all sway that. Everybody linked arms, they began to lean into it, and they began to feel it, and they began to appreciate it, and they were able to sing it because it brought community.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean it's spirit filled. I mean, true, authentic gospel music, it just touches the soul
Yes.
in ways that in unique ways. Um, yeah.
Well, what was the difference between the gospel, their understanding and appreciation of gospel music, and there a difference in their appreciation of the spirituals, which is also an authentic um,
Right.
uh, African American.
Well, yeah, but let me back up and say now, of course, now this is not a monolith. I'm talking about the very limited experience I had in this one church, but the people were a across the continuum, and so you had French people who were part of the church. You had expatriate Americans who were part of the church. You had Africans from all different countries, in Africa, in the church. So this is not a monolith. But I'm saying from the thing that I experienced, French people and the people in the church, they love great music.
Mm.
So they had an appreciation for any kind of music that was beautiful music that was done well. I did not get to hear but one gospel group, other gospel group while I was there, and that was not from France. They actually came from Holland.
Wow.
Okay. Were you
Yeah.
able to incorporate any of the spirituals, or even how did you determine what was going to be sung? What type of not what type of music, but the beat of the music? Was it going to be?
What I did was when I knew that I was gonna be going over there, the music director of the church asked me, if there was any particular songs, scores, choral scores that I wanted to order. They would be happy to order, and so I ordered a ton of music. Um, because I wanted to make sure I taught this music. And so there are many arrangements of gospel pieces, a lot of Richard Smallwood's pieces, a lot of Andre Crouch's pieces, some of Kirk Franklin's pieces have been scored, some of Fred Hammond's pieces have been scored. So they're available. And what I did was I always knew what the sermon, what the focus and theme of the sermon. And so I always tried to select music that helped to facilitate the message that was going forth. And so that's kind of how we determined what songs were going to be sung. But I taught it to them just like we learn it over here. I didn't water it down. I didn't, anglicize it up. No, I gave it to them exactly the way we do it.
Well, will you give us a little bit of that music that you sung over there? Give us a taste.
So we did we did Total Praise, Richard Smallwood's Total Praise. We did Richard what else we do by Richard Smallwood? I Love the Lord. Mm-hmm. We did that. We did Oh Lord, we give you praise. What is that? We offer praise. We offer praise. We did several Robert Ray people. Well, we did Robert Ray's Total Gospel Mass, but we also did his He Never Failed Me Yet. We did God Is. We did so many gospel standard pieces.
Let's hear a little bit of that God Is.
Yeah, I want you to sing that for us.
Well, I'll do the chorus part. God is the joy and the strength of my life, who moves all pain, misery, and strife. who promised to keep me, never to leave me, who never ever comes short of God's word. I've got to fast and pray, stay in the narrow way. I'll keep my life clean every day. I want to go with Christ when he comes back. I've come too far and I'll never turn back. God is, God is, oh God is, God is, God is my own and all.
Thank you. Woo, woo, woo. Oh,
But it was a joy to work with the choir because they were so hungry for something new. The gentleman who retired, which was why they had the director position open, had been there for 40 plus years, and he had done a very strictly Western European choral literature program. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with Western choral literature, but they were really hungry for something new and something different. And so they, instead of going out and getting somebody right away to replace him, they decided to do a series of interims. The lady who served
So for our viewing audience, the Western literature, they don't explain that or give us a little piece of what that. What do you mean by that? Right.
So I mean the music of what they call the masters, the masters of choral singing, choral literature. So when you're in high school or college and you're singing in the high school concert choir or the college concert choir, you're going to do what are called the standards of choral literature. So you're going to do some Bach, Johann Sebastian Bach. You're going to do some of his choral pieces. You might do Handel's Messiah, which is an oratorio. You're going to do some choral pieces, maybe a Requiem by Mozart or Fauré. You're going to do pieces that have been scored, written using the core tenets of Western choral singing, which came about in Europe, beginning with antiquity, with the Gregorian chant in the Catholic, what became the Catholic Church, and then developed over time into the music of the medieval period, the Renaissance, and then the Baroque period, which is Bach.
So they just built on it,
and then the Romantic period. So you might sing some pieces by Mendelssohn. I'm sorry, the classical period. So you sing some things by Mozart, and Haydn and Handel. Well, Handel's more Baroque, but Haydn, Schubert, those people, and then the Romantic period. So then you have the Beethoven and the composers of those big symphonies and those big choral pieces. And then, of course, you move into the 20th century period, but they all follow the rules, if you will, of singing, of choral music, of that time period. So then,
excuse me, Dr. McLaurin.
It's going to sound the same.
Excuse me, Dr. McLaurin. We've got a question in the chat from one of our Orlando sisters. It says, did you find teaching the parts, meaning soprano, alto, tenor, etc., to a song similar or different than teaching in the States?
Well, one of the things that they had to be taught how to do was to learn by rote, meaning without the score. So if I had the music score, oftentimes many of them could read the music. So now that was something that was different than I find in many of our churches here. Most of the churches I've served, most of the people in the choirs do not read music. They have to be taught how to read music. The people in that church, many of them had sung in choirs for many, many years, and some of them were professional singers, but they had not really ever sung choral pieces taught by rote. So to listen to something and learn it was a challenge for them.
Wow.
But culturally, it's not a part of their upbringing. Or their education, part of the educational piece, whereby we go to school here and we learn basic things. Many of those schools over there, or I'm maybe not saying that right, but that's part of their upbringing, that it's expected for them to learn the music. It's expected for them to know how to flow in the music. And honestly, we in America don't put that kind of energy into it. It's an elective, or not an elective for our children. It's something, if you want to take it, you can, but you don't have to. Whereby for them, it's you have to. You have to learn this. You have to know this. It's a part of your history, and it's important to know.
Right. And you know what's so interesting? That was not always the case in America. When I was growing up, every little girl took piano lessons. Every little girl in my school just about took piano lessons. And many of the boys, some of them took voice lessons. And of course, back then, they still had music in the schools. But yes, you're right. It is a part of it's an understood part of their academic program. And there are conservatories, music schools, because there was one right down the street from the church. And many of those children, and they're not looking to become concert pianists or concert performers. That's just a regular part of their childhood growing up, of their academic program, which is sad that we have taken it out of so many of our schools, and which is why so many of our children grow up to be musically illiterate.
Wow, Dr. Lauren, we really want to thank you for being with us today. We only have about a few minutes left. So what are some, if you had to 3 kind of takeaways or 5 takeaways for from your experience and that that we ought to have, what would those be?
Well, if you can travel abroad, do it. I don't know if I'd say regret, but one thing I wished I had done while I was there was traveled to other countries from there, because you can take the train from Paris to just about anywhere in Europe. But I had several. I had quite a bit going on. Other than being the interim director, I was not only finishing my book, but I finished a major article for the journal Religions, which just came out, overcoming the violence of virtuous womanhood. A look at the Proverbs 31 woman, which was just published. That was a major article. And then, having to teach the Womanist theology class was a lot. And so I didn't get to do as much traveling abroad. Now, I did get a chance to visit with some friends from the church. They hosted me in their home for several days out in the Parisian countryside, and that was beautiful and restful. But if you can travel abroad, travel abroad, save the money, so that you can go and spend a couple of weeks wherever it is you want to go, whether it's Italy, France, Germany, wherever, because it will open your eyes to so much more. It will just broaden your horizons to so much more. I would say always be open for the unexpected experience. I never would have thought that I would have spent 6 months in Paris, teaching and serving, as a musician. And because I did, I got to meet Bishop Michael Curry and serve as the musician for his revival for the 100th anniversary of the Convocation of Episcopal Churches in Europe. I got to do so many things, and I never would have thought that I would have been, able to do that. But I had to be ready. When that opportunity came, I responded immediately, and it was nothing but the Holy Spirit that said, "That's for you." And I when the email came, I responded that day, that same hour, and within a week, it was in process for me to, go through the steps. You have to get your visa and all that, for me to go. But I had to be ready. If you're going to have these experiences and take advantage of them, you got to be prepared. So you can't just say, well, I'll prepare when the opportunity presents itself. You got to be prepared before the opportunity presents itself. And then you got to have a mindset to say, I'm going to do it. I'm going to put myself out there. It's scary. But, I have a good friend, Dr. Melva Sampson. That's one of her things. You got to do it scared. You got to do it scared. And I was over there by myself. Like, my family couldn't travel with me. My husband came to help me get settled, and he came to help me, prepare to go home. But I was basically by myself, living in the church, because they have apartments in the church. But I couldn't say, oh, well, no, I'm not going to go because I'm going to be by myself. No, I'm not going to go because, I don't know if we let fear keep us from so many things. And God has so much more for us. And then I would say, be open to what the experience has to teach you. You don't just go to teach or go to share, but I received just as much, if not more, than I gave through the learning, through the exposure and all of that. Those would be some of the lessons I would say. Yeah.
Wow.
That's good, because so many times we feel like because we are the headline or the named or the person that's been invited, we're the one that's equipped. We've got certainly we go with the full quiver and we're ready to do what we need to do, but we have to be open to learning something new. Absolutely. And you're right.
Absolutely. Thank you, my sister, my Delta sister. I'm sorry your sorrow couldn't be with us today, but you are, you still my sister.
I hope she's good. Tell her I said hello. But yeah, this was awesome.
Bless you. Thank you so much for sharing with us. We would not know anything about what's going on in Paris, especially from a womanist perspective, if you were not with us. So bless you and thank you so very kindly.
I love you all.
Love you. God bless.
God bless.